Now let's say the implementation of interface in our car application. So what we'll do is let's clean the code a bit, and so instead of writing interface, let me remove this. Okay, so what I have is I have a card class in which I have three methods: ATM, debit, and credit. So what we'll do is we'll say let's create interface. So we'll say interface ATM, and in this interface ATM I have a method called as void ATM. I have one more interface called as debit, and we'll say void debit, since we have the same name interface in other class. So let's remove this. Let's delete all this code. I don't want this class anymore now. Let's go back to test demo, and I need one more interface. So we'll say this interface is credit. We'll say void credit. Okay. Now what we need to do is we have to say this class card extends or implements. So it implements all the interfaces, which is ATM, debit, and credit. So it implements ATM, comma debit, comma credit. Again, we can use multiple inheritance. That's why we can use all the interfaces here. And now if customer comes to you and say I need an ATM card, you can simply say ATM obj equal to new card, and you can give that obj to customer, or you can say obj1 to customer, so that this customer will only call ATM. Now if this customer tries to call obj.debit, it will not work. So you can see we are getting an error there. Clear? But let's say if you have a customer which comes to you and say I need a debit card, so it's simple, right? We can simply say it is debit obj2 equal to new card, and then this obj2 has a debit card which we can only call debit. If you try to call ATM from this, it will give you an error. And if customer comes to you and say I need a credit card, you can simply create a reference of credit and say obj3 equal to new credit, and then you can say obj3 dot not credit, it should be a card, and you can say obj.3 dot credit, right? If you try to call obj.3 dot debit, it will give you an error. So that's the way, or that's the example of how to use your interfaces, right? So that's the implementation of interface. But hold on, let me remove this credit now. Let's say if you have a customer and he says, okay, I want two features in the same card. I need a card which should have ATM plus debit feature. But the problem is you have three different interfaces, and all different interfaces have only one method. So you cannot create one reference here. You need to create two references, one for ATM, second for debit, right? But customer will say, no, I want only one reference. So what we can do is, to solve this problem, somewhere here we can create one more interface, and we'll name this interface as ATM cum debit. That means this interface will have both the features. So we need to write void ATM and void debit. So this interface has both the methods, and since we are creating a new interface, we need to say comma ATM cum debit. Simple. And we need to go somewhere here and say, let's say we have ATM cum debit, and your customer will be obj3 new card, and using this obj3 now you can call both the features. You can call ATM, you can call obj3 dot debit, but if you try to call obj3 dot credit, it will give you an error. It's because ATM cum debit card has only two features. So you can even define an interface with multiple methods. You can see we are using two methods here. Clear? Now the problem is, let me remove this extra code here. Okay, the problem is, since see, we have a concept of inheritance, right, which says when you write something in one block, why we need to repeat the same thing in another block? We can use something called as inheritance here. But how exactly we can implement inheritance in interface, that we'll see in the next part.